Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our third day of our safety seminars for National Safety Month 2021. My name's Cody Calder. I'm the head of safety at RAAus and very happy to welcome you all in this morning. Thanks for joining us on your Sunday morning. Today's topic will hopefully be an informative one, particularly for our aircraft owners out there on engine on condition. Before we get going, I'd just like to welcome and thank our National Safety Month sponsors. We've got over $10,000 worth of giveaways up for grabs across October for National Safety Month, which we couldn't do if it weren't for our sponsors. Our gold sponsor for today's seminars is Flight Safety Solutions. If you're an aircraft owner or maintainer, they've got a bunch of maintenance training and aircraft owner training solutions. So jump up onto their website and give them a check out. You can also see their presentation here later today where you can ask questions. Just before we get started, for those who haven't logged into one of our seminars yet, on the right-hand side of your screen, you should have a chat bar, a Q&A bar rather. The questions or any questions for Darren today can be put into that bar. And we will answer them throughout or at the end of the presentation. If that bar hasn't opened yet on your system, there should be a blue chat button in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you hit that button, it should open that panel so that you can see and ask questions. So, on that note, I'll welcome in Darren Barnfield, who's presenting this morning's presentation. Good morning, Daz.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time this morning to log on and go through this topic. It's we've always found that the on condition component for RAAus is always one that has generated quite substantial amount of discussion. So let's get this show on the road. It's a beautiful day down here in Victoria. So for any Victorians watching, I'm sure you're all keen to get out and experience some freedoms. So we'll get on with the show. Some of these topics I'll try and just glaze over. I won't bore people to death, with the old death by PowerPoint. But what we'll cover off today, is our introduction. What is on condition, which RAAus aircraft and on condition operation is applicable to. On condition MARAP. So the MARAP I'll go into detail with, but it's the modification and repair approval process. And something new that we'll introduce to everyone, the ECMP, which forms part of the Rotax on condition MARAP. So we'll get into that a bit later on as well. Okay, so in our introduction, there comes a time in the life where it must be overhauled or replaced. Unfortunately, over time with RAAus, a lot of the information around on condition has somewhat become distorted, or it has become misinterpreted. But the core issue is what is when is it due to be overhauled, and what are the indicators behind that? And again, inevitably with an engine on condition, it's all about factors of wear. We break that down as we've got here with the utilisation of how many hours, and that's a big consideration now because a lot of us around Australia, more so here in Victoria and now in New South Wales, have been greatly affected because of the pandemic. So the underutilisation of a Rotax engine is now going to come into play. We've got other factors such as the air filters, the engine oil. How often do people change their oil? We hear a lot of stories where people will have differing and varying views on how they maintain their aircraft. The techniques used by pilots, their management, their operational environment situations, the length of flights, the type of oil, the type of fuels. Some will run MOGAS, some will run AVGAS. And then lastly, we've got the storage and the condition, which I mentioned previously about the low utilisation due to an unprecedented pandemic that we're all currently experiencing, and that has a big issue on on the condition of it. And I mean, it boils down to, fuel systems, everything else. So there's a number of factors there about low utilization. A lot of people will have positions and ideas around, what they do with an engine, and we'll cover off on some of those later. Okay. In the 12.6 of the technical manual, it talks about, piston engine condition and ongoing. And RAAus has always recommended that the engine manufacturer's process has to be followed. If you're running a Rotax engine or you're running some other variant, you should be using that manufacturer's system of maintenance. And on-condition operation may be depending on the certification basis of that. So to be eligible to run on condition, you need to make sure that you are following that manufacturer's system of maintenance. And that you record the data. Unfortunately, we do find that a lot of that data isn't recorded, but we'll move on with some information around that later on in the recording of data specific to your engine moving forward. So on condition, what is on condition? This is the the question that a lot of people ask, and a lot of people have varying views. But on condition is the maintenance. It means an inspection, functional check that determines appropriate performance and may result in the removal of an item before it fails in service. As we reiterate to members, it's not a philosophy on fit until failure or fit and forget. Some of the militaries operate under a process where they replace, basically when it cacks itself, they'll just let it run. But our philosophy is that we monitor it, and that's what this whole process is, to make sure that you're enjoying the privileges of what RAAus offer, but that engine is safe and reliable, and it meets the requirements, and it's in a position to continue operating. So, as it says here, items left in service on condition that they continue to meet the desired physical condition and performance standards, and that reverts back to the manufacturer's system of maintenance. You take in your other external factors, which we've mentioned, such as, pandemics, how many hours you fly. Some of our members are just absolutely prolific, aviators that are out, every day. Some of our members use their aircraft, around their farms. We have members in flying schools. So there's a number of operations there that vary from, Bill Bloggs, who flies, 1 hour or 2 hours, a month, just recreationally, and then other people that do it, but the continue to to meet a desired physical condition and performance standards have to be met, and you have to follow the manufacturer's requirements around that for that to occur. Now here it goes. Now a lot of people will have some knowledge of this, some members won't. An amateur built aircraft, so RAAus has an experimental category, but that is for light sport. Our amateur built aircraft is different, same but different to sort of an SAAA process. But our home built aircraft, our amateur built aircraft, so that allows a person or a group of persons to fabricate the major portion for their own education and recreation. So because they can use materials and equipment that wouldn't be used, or allows them to grade their own timber or use, weld their own frames, they can then take, an engine like a Continental or a Lycoming or a Rotax or Rotec, any type of engine, and they can then run that engine on condition past that requirement in an amateur built aircraft. A light sport aircraft, well, that's a whole different category. We have, as I said, an experimental category for light sport, which permits, but then it's all dependent again on the manufacturer, and that's a very in-depth topic. And type certified, if it meets the criteria, is yes. So while I'm sitting here, I've got a message here from Pete. G'day, Pete. Good morning. Thanks for dialing in. The Rotax manual states that there is a time element for overall 10 years, regardless of the factor. Is there a way to extend the time if the engine is well serviced and indicated otherwise? Mate, this is what this talk's all about. And as I move on with that, I'll get into what that process is. So if you can just bear with me, we will come to that. Again, thanks for dialing in. And this is what this discussion is it talks about what we can do to meet those requirements around going past either hours or calendar time for Rotax engines. So in our tech manual, as I mentioned previously, 12.6, I can't reiterate enough. If you have not had a look at the current updated version of the RAAus manual, I've had some recent discussions with some of our members, and they've been citing references, to the last manual or even 2 manuals prior. So if you haven't had a chance, it's on the web. Download it. We're up to 4.01 in the tech manual, and myself and Jared are currently working on amendments to upgrade that the current tech manual. So please, if you haven't read it, have a good look at that. 12.6, the requirements for on condition. So again, we see a lot of members that will listen to someone on an airfield. As we all know, there's someone on an airfield who's quite prolific, that's been around for 100 years. He's the go-to guy that knows the little, tricks and bits and pieces. But a lot of the times when we discuss, points of concern with members, or they ring up with a question, myself and Jared and Leanne in the tech team will only give a member a reference to a point that we can actually say, here it is. So in our head of power is 9555 CAO, Civil Aviation Order. And then we have our technical manual that allows us to operate and maintain these aircraft. 12.6 is the reference around what it is. So the requirements for on condition, the engine must have been maintained in accordance with the manufacturer's schedule from the day of installation. So Rotax have an incredible reference of information and data and checks and balances on their website. So if you've got an aircraft, even if it's a home built, you should be using that manufacturer's reference. And I'll keep reiterating that you need to use the manufacturer's reference. No missed or late service intervals. So again, read the manuals. They may allow a plus or minus factor for say, a 25 hourly or a 50 hourly or 100 hourly, 200 and so on. And that all service bulletins are carried out when they fall due. So these are the requirements to run on condition. And unfortunately, as we find, a lot of these are missed. A lot of our members need to, we're doing extremely well. And now that we're out of lockdown, I'm hoping that myself and Jared can get out and continue with the L1 training and some of our pop-ups at member airfields to go through and reiterate what's required for this. Jared and I are very, very strongly focused on it's better to educate than to reprimand or regulate. There's a regulation there. It's our job to provide everyone with the skills and the knowledge to comply with that. Tech Form 23, the engine condition report, complete at the time, and this is to be done. Members tend to forget that there is a mandatory requirement within maintenance of an aircraft that it's either 12 months or 100 hours, whichever comes first. So if it's a flying school aircraft and they do 300 hours in a year, they effectively do 3 100-hourly inspections in the year. If we've got Bill Bloggs, who flies 10 hours a year, he's still at the end of that 12-month cycle has to then perform a maintenance inspection on the engine and on the airframe. And then that requirement of following the tech manual around the CAO. So if you've got an instrument like an altimeter or a transponder, they've got to be calibrated as well. What we're finding now, and this is the reasoning for where we're going to this point with on condition, is that if the above aren't completed, on condition isn't applicable. But we have a process that will address that, so we'll get onto it. So now I've got a message here from Tony. I have an 18-year-old brand new Rotax 914 in my box, never inhibited beyond what was delivered with. It's in its original packaging. Is my engine able to meet any home-built experimental criteria being so old? Thank you. Well, Tony, yes, it can. Again, as I said before, it's up to the person that's building the aircraft. They can validate that they built their own aircraft for their own education recreation. They can use usually some in home built, some non-commercial or aeronautical grade components. But with an engine that's 18 years old along those lines, it's a 914. The requirement for operating an engine on condition for an Amateur-built is wholly and solely the responsibility of the person building that aircraft. And as I said before, for the aircraft to then be maintained and then meet the requirements of the technical manual, there has to be an elected system of maintenance. So if you sold your engine, a person could buy that. They could quite legally put that into their aircraft, as long as they do their checks and balances and they're comfortable in doing so. Myself, Jared, and Leanne would issue that aircraft a phase one or a permit to test fly the aircraft for a period of time, and then go on from there. But that person would then need to, prior to the installation or during the installation or prior to the first flight, have an established system of maintenance, and then have a look at what the Rotax system says around storage and the installation of an engine along those times. Or the other option is that engine could go back to someone like Bert Floods here in Australia, and we have Mark Lester down there, otherwise known as Wal, who's our resident Australian expert on all things Rotax. He could have a look at the engine and then come back to you with a more of a certified approach from Rotax here in the country for that answer. So hopefully, Tony, thanks again for signing on. I hope that answers the question. If anyone here today has anything further that they want to bring up after this, I'm contactable, during the week, after hours, on mobile, and at any time. So please do not ever hesitate to call myself to talk about any of these concerns. We will only give you, factual information that we can substantiate through the CAOs, the CARs, the tech manual, and whatever else. And, we're happy to work with our members to achieve a positive outcome. Moving on. Okay, so the MARAP. As I said before, MARAP is the modification and repair approval process. It was a process that the tech team designed when I was sitting, in Jared's seat there for a period, and it was to address issues around type certified aeroplanes. So the MARAP is not applicable to Amateur-built. It's not applicable to LSA or ELSA. It is only applicable to our type certified aeroplanes. So prior to LSA, our aircraft either were accepted under a type certificate from an NAA, which is a National Airworthiness Authority, or what CASA have issued what they call a competent issuing authority. And there's about 180 countries around the world that CASA and other countries, aeronautical associations like EASA or the FAA, accept as competent issuing authorities. So the problem with it is when we get a type certificate for an aeroplane, it'll say a Rotax 912A, and it will say propeller, A, and that's it. If there's nothing else listed in the type certificate, there is no permissibility for any modification and change. With some of our aircraft, and some of, and considering RALs has been around an extended period of time now, some of the early type certified aeroplanes come in with 912As, they come in with propellers that are no longer supported, and we had no ability to modify it under the regulations, and I won't bore everyone with that process, but to delve into it, there was no way, because CASA won't accept, or CASA allow RALs to operate under exemption under 9555, and allows RALs to use a competent issuing authority or an NAA type certification. Because CASA then hasn't mirrored that certification on their side, then an aeronautical engineer here in Australia could not then issue a modification. So what do our members do? Our members in this case have been modifying aeroplanes based on some good information, some bad information, but it was never done with any safety issues. It was a compliance issue. So MARAP come on to be the process around modification and repair approval. So we wrote the process. We took it to Mark Skidmore at that time. He then approved it. We did a number of them under direct supervision. We have an aeronautical engineer that is contracted to RAAus. So you as a member will apply with the form for a modification for your type certified RAAus aircraft. And then depending on, what it is, we put a brief together. We do an engineering review. It goes off to the aeronautical engineers. The aeronautical engineers will have a look at it and go, okay, yep, this looks all okay. So we'll use the case of the Bolly propeller. A Bolly propeller, 3-blade Boss 3 propeller can be used on an LSA, which has been certified by BOLI in South Australia. But by law, by regulation, we couldn't use an LSA-approved propeller on a type-certified aeroplane. Under MARAP, that now is one of the benefits, and a lot of members will have the benefit of having BOLIs on their aircraft. Same goes for engines. You know, we have a lot of members that'll have a 912A, the early 80 horsepower engines. We've done a lot of development and a lot of testing through MARAP, flight testing ourselves, where we've been able to validate a 912 ULS. So a 100 horsepower engine can then go in that aircraft as a direct replacement. And then one of the member benefits of MARAP being utilised for RAOs means that our members then can get a more readily available 912 ULS, put that into their type certified aeroplane. They get a little bit more horsepower, but there's no direct or adverse effect, flight characteristics, weights, problems along those lines moving forward. And now we come back to MARAP for our engines, our Rotax engines. So as we've got here, the MARAP was developed and completed. It's undergoing final release prior to becoming available to the members. It's under internal. It's been finished. It's now sitting with the senior executive of RAOs for final approval. We'll come back to the members, very, very shortly with a web update, a e-news, and some history around it. But effectively, if you're, and you can go to this information here is readily available in the Rotax manual now on the Rotax site. But as long as your engine falls within this range, now it is only applicable to 912 ULSs. It's not applicable to two strokes. It's not applicable to IS engines or the 914s at this stage. It doesn't cover, we can't use it in a light sport aircraft or an aircraft being used for ab initio training. So at the moment, nothing for flight school, and we can't use it for any glider towing. So I'll run into a little bit more in depth there, but I've got a question that's just popped up from Kev McNally. G'day, Kev. Does a private owner have to register or inform RAOs when electing to run engine on condition? In the past, again, it's the member's responsibility, Kev, to maintain the aircraft in accordance with the system of maintenance provided by the manufacturer. What we have in the new Rotax the MARAP RAOs MARAP Rotax is there is a way of us data collecting that we'll look at a later stage. So when this is finally approved and we go live with that, there'll be a process in there for the members to follow, and then because RAOs will then take the liability of running on condition for the member and their aircraft, there will be a heads up, back to myself and Jared and Leanne in the technical department. So here it goes, here with our MARAP. So we're talking about the MARAP at the moment for on condition. So if you've met all the requirements, you've maintained your aircraft in accordance with the Rotax system of maintenance, you've done your leak down tests, you've recorded your oil uplifts, you've done your burnt, what you're using oil wise over a period. Here is an example of what the MARAP will look like for a member that will do it. And this MARAP is applicable to a person is operating a flying school aeroplane. They're getting to the end of their either calendar time or their hours time. And here's an example here, as you can see, that if you have a 912A and up, and it goes by make and model, engine model, you can see here the original TBO limits were 600 hours and 10 years. So if you reach, 600 hours and and its limits are reached with the MARAP, and this is the MARAP that we're talking about here, it is then extended by 2 years or effectively 200 hours, as long as the validation of the serial number fits within the range, and then that you also just prior to coming either on condition. So within a couple of months, either side of an engine becoming effectively reaching TBO, that's when you would then need to come to the technical team, have a chat to us about applying for the 20% of its approved TBO limit and extended it for flight hours and calendar time. You can also see down below that we've got a 912 ULS that's got 1,200 hours or 10 years. So you reach your flight time or your calendar time, and then you can also extend that out by up to 2 years or another 200 hours whichever comes first. So the maintenance and the overall indicator is always dictated by the reading of an electronic hour meter. So a lot of members are under the impression that they can run their engines on flight switch. That's totally permissible for an experimental amateur build or an amateur build aircraft. But for anyone of our members out there that believes that running their Rotax engine currently on flight switch, it's not permitted by the manufacturer. So Rotax actually stipulate in there that that it has to be run by mechanical means. So that reference can be provided if anyone has any concerns or questions around air switch versus the flight switch. We can provide that reference direct from Rotax for that. If someone was running on flight switch, we ask people to to sort of have a read of the manual. As I said at RAOs, we're an educator. We work with our members, so just basically draw a line through the logbook and say, okay, I was running on flight switch, I was in the wrong belief. You bring everything up. So, Rotax deem its engine start to engine stop for an hour, which then basically falls in line with what you've got for your for your airframe. We do have some flight schools in past that have been called out on this. They might have a 0.1 or a 0.3 or even a 0.5. Sometimes taxiway at a major aircraft. So for them, it was about financial gain that they weren't charging for the actual use. But unfortunately, Rotax deem its engine start to engine stop. Okay, another message here from William Jin. Yeah, Bill, how are you going? Thanks again for popping in so early this morning. Darren, would you please publish these questions and answers as well as the PowerPoint presentation on the RAO's website? Absolutely. We'll make all this available. This recording will be made available to members. There'll be a link, a YouTube link. So for those that were desperate enough or need to dig their eyes out, they can watch this again. And as I said before, Bill, at any time, mate, I'm always available. So please do not hesitate to giving me a bell. My details are on the website. I'll see if Cody or Jared or whoever I need to can put our details up, emails and phones and get to us. So please sing out. And again, using this Q&A is great. If you've got any specific questions during my ranting here, please come back to me and I'll do my best to provide you the reference or the answer. So getting back to MARIP, it is 20% of its approved TBO. The documentation package that will come with it will explain in depth what we will do around the MARIP process if you want to take that on. So if you're in a flying school, you're coming up to 2,000 hours and you go, oh, geez, it's been a really hard year. COVID's knocked the stuffing out of me. All of a sudden I start to get back to, really, starting to move some goals. I'm starting to fly, life's starting to return back to normal. But now all of a sudden I'm faced with an exorbitant bill because I've got to overhaul my engine. At the moment, we can't use an engine on condition for flight training. But if the aircraft was in a flying school and a student had already completed their ab initio training and they had their RPC, their pilot certificate, and they wanted to use that aircraft for an endorsement such as a cross country, well, then it's permissible for the aircraft to be used in that environment. The process of what myself and Jared and Leanne are trying to do here is to build up factual gathered data to be able to then go back to the regulator and say, well, look, we've been using MARIP now for 6 or 12 months, 2 years, whatever it may take. Here's all our data. Here's all our statistical evidence to show that there is no issue. And the view is that we will then hopefully one day maybe be able to even allow an on-condition component as long as it's measured and captured and recorded, maybe for a flying school environment. So it will help our flight school operators in a financial position. But at the moment, it only be used for aircraft that are, just for endorsement training. So unfortunately, I'm sorry, guys, for our flight school operators, but it does provide people with the ability to utilise that engine for an extended period of time. So, what are the requirements for that? As Bill's indicated here, he wants these points. It'll be up on the website. We'll provide a link to this information, but the serial number, the engine model and serial number has to appear in that original table that I showed, and that table is directly it comes directly from the Rotax website. There will be some members. There will be a very small percentage of members that may have some of the very early 912s that are outside that, and unfortunately, they're just too old. We just don't feel confident that, and even Rotax themselves obviously show you can have a starting point and a finishing point between serial numbers, and if you're outside those, unfortunately, there's not much we can do for the MARAP on a type certified aeroplane. But again, it does open opportunities if someone was interested in an amateur built category. The engine hours have not exceeded the TBA by more than 20%. So we have done some research. We've been doing a lot of beta testing with a lot of really informative members out there. And there's a point that I'll move on to with this MARAP very, very shortly to cover what happens outside that 20%. Members have to show the manufacturer service bulletins and applicable ADs, airworthiness directives, are due or complied with. Again, so, our members, we provide a lot of training at the L1 course on the requirements around logbook entries and what's required. All maintenance schedules, it's quite funny. We get on a very regular basis, people say, Daz, what do you mean? I'm RA Oz. I don't need to do 100 hourly or an annual. And again, we're all about dispelling any myth, any of these old chestnuts that a lot of some of our members tend to have. But again, we'll work around that, and there's a fix to that. Again, time-limited components that will exceed their life. So, you need to make sure that you're up to date. Again, you're following the manufacturer's system of maintenance here. So it mandates the 5-yearly rubber hose replacement. There's fuel pump replacements, carby, floats. There's a number of issues there that members need to do to make sure that their engine is compliant and it meets that, fit for purpose process around operating the aircraft. No abnormal engine behaviour, and I mean, none of our members are going to operate an aircraft that is, that's got any excessive vibration or something that's not right. Well, that's pretty much a given. Again, 600-hour inspections carried out to confirm all the parameters, and that includes 100 and 200-hour inspections. And if anyone's got any concerns around that or doesn't understand that and doesn't want to come live, by all accounts, again, contact us and we'll do our utmost to explain that and educate and provide whatever guidance we can around that. Again, complete the piston engine condition report. That's that's pretty much a given. But it's amazing how many members will say to me, "Oh, look, Daz, it's a Rotax. I do one every now and then. I don't bother recording it because it's a Rotax." Unfortunately, part of being, entitled under the privileges of what RAOs give, there is certain parameters that you have to do to register and maintain and validate that the engine is in condition fit for flight. So, not that we don't doubt what our members are telling us, and the data and what we've seen over the years certainly supports it, but that has to be recorded. So you need to fill this, the piston engine condition report in and keep a copy of it in, your logbook as well at all times. Rightio. Now, moving on. I mentioned before that as long as the engine doesn't, a MARAP is applicable to an engine that is, as long as it doesn't exceed 20%. What we've done in a lot of the data that we've actually found is that because we've done some beta testing, so in my position, I hold a delegation from CASA as an authorised person, and I have the ability to issue a research and development C of A for RAO's aircraft. So we've done some validated testing over the last couple of years. This is something that I've been working on now for a good couple of years, and then when we do some auditing or some editing, we have found a number of aircraft are way outside that 20% of the allowable that was for the MARAP. No safety case, in there, and it's a compliance issue. So we go, bugger, what are we going to do to address this? The members, get quite upset, sometimes get, a little bit grumpy, a little bit, thinking that they're going to get into trouble because they're outside that. So again, we're about the education, we're about the training, we're about promoting, practice and best practice. We all know there's an acceptable level of risk, and our members take that on board, in informed participation. That's what makes RAOs such a great organisation to be a part of. But when we get back to the MARAP, a lot of our aircraft that we've done the beta testing on have not been able to comply with the MARAP requirements. Hence, they're not eligible to get that 2 year or 200 or 400 hour extent. 2 years or 200 hours, and then again with that MARAP, if they meet those parameters, they can get another 2 years or another 200 hours. So they can effectively get 4 years and 400 hours under that MARAP. All of a sudden, we've got these aircraft that members are coming up with going, oh bugger, I'm actually way outside this 20%. So we went back to the drawing board. We're just at the tail end of it now with the engineers, with the senior executive and board. And we come up with an amendment to the MARAP, which is now called the ECMP. And the ECMP is applicable only for private operations in RAOs. It's only applicable to aircraft that can be used for private. So, it doesn't allow for a, you can't use, if a flying school turns around and realises, oh, bugger, I'm way outside here, I can't get the MARAP. You can use the ECMP, so the Engine Conditioning Monitoring Program, and that's the key to it there. Engine Conditioning Monitoring Program. It spells it out in the title, and it just means that on a 12-month basis, a member can come to us and go, I want to get the MARAP. I want to purchase this MARAP. I can't afford a new engine, so I want to purchase this MARAP. I only operate privately. I'm only a recreational pilot. And then we go back to them again with a new process. Again, it calls out the manufacturer's system of maintenance, and it calls out the manufacturer's mandated requirements. So, if to run on condition, you still got to do your 5 yearly rubber and hose replacements. You've still got to meet all those mandatory or replaceable items. But all of a sudden we get an engine that comes out of nowhere and we have no history on it. The technical manager, the head of airworthiness and maintenance, Jared, has the ability, and he may, and it's on a case-by-case scenario with our members, he may require a little bit further in-depth requirements. So that may require, and some of the other processes that we've seen around on condition, it actually mandates these requirements to run on condition. But we felt that we only need to look at these issues. May look at these issues on a case-by-case scenario. Generally, most members will come to us, we'll give them the ECMP, and they'll continue operating their aircraft, recording their data, providing us, updates on where they are and what they do on a 12-month basis. The ECMP will only be valid for a 12-month period, so that 1 year, 100 hours, or 12 months, whichever comes first, and then we'll go through that process at a later stage. But if Jared comes across an engine, or myself or Leanne, and we require further validation or confirmation, we may require a borescope. I don't know if members that you hear of a spectrographic oil sample analysis, otherwise known as a SOAP sample. You may have heard of that. Some members may already be doing SOAP samples, where each overhaul period, the members will take a small sample. They send that off for spectrographic analysis, and it will come back and it will say, okay, engine A has X amount percentage of copper, has X amount of percentage of iron, and all the metals that are inside. For reciprocating, suck, squeeze, bang, blow engine, it is permissible, and they do make metal in operation. It's part of what happens, for an internal combustion engine. So measuring that over an extended period of time actually allows you to understand the health of what your engine is going through. I do it. I operate a little Bell helicopter. So for me, it gives me an understanding. If I see an increase, at an annual, and I actually there's an increase in aluminium, is that a piston pin plug, or if I see copper or whatever else, it allows me to, go back to my engine builder and say, look, I've got this. Oh yeah, that's expected. It's a new engine or whatever else. So there may be that requirement, or at even to a point where if an engine's been sitting, we had someone before talk about a 914 that had been sitting for 18 years. You may want to pop a cylinder off and have a good look inside the bore or whatever else. So the engine on engine acceptance into the ECMP program, RALs will issue a permit to fly. Ongoing, and that'll be for a 12-month period, and then the permit will expire either at 12 months or 100 hours, whichever it was. So as it says on the screen in front of everyone here, the ECMP does not constitute a technical recommendation to operate a Rotax 912 beyond their approved TBO limits specified by the manufacturer. So, we're doing our best to gather the data, allow the members to operate past this. As I said, the MARIP will cover aircraft that are still within that 20% range towards either calendar or hours time of TBO. And the ECMP is what will then take other members that are outside that process, and then over a period of time with the process of education and training, we should see a decline in the amount on the ECMP, and then we'll see a number of members fall back into the engine on condition with the MARIP, which will then run for 2 years and 200 hours, and then at the end of that we do a review. We have a look at the collected data, and that will be the piston engine condition report, service bulletin compliance, logbook entries, and then the members eligible then to look at purchasing another 2 years and another 200 hours on that process. And as I said, the upside to it is that maybe in time we can go back to the regulator and say, look, we've got enough data here. We know that the 912 series engines are okay, and we move down that path. So I've said it before. Slide shows here the ECMP doesn't at this moment cover IS engines. Doesn't cover, I think, the 914s because of the turbo, because there's a different operating parameter there, and there's a smaller percentage of those. Those 91S and the 914s can operate in Amateur-built on condition, but this MARIP and the ECMP is wholly and solely designed to address thrusters, drifters, light wings, gazelles, that type of early type certified aeroplane. And there are restrictions associated with this implementation of the process, which is over operation over closely settled areas. So you couldn't do a joy flight, over the centre of Canberra or Melbourne or Sydney, or fly up Victor 1 or whatever else. Not many members, very, very, very small amount do any sort of towing, and the ab initio, which is the initial flight training. But as I said, a student outside that has a pilot certificate can then use an aircraft that has an engine on condition under the MARIP, not the ECMP, the MARIP, can then be used for flight training or endorsement training moving forward. And here we go. We're up to the last slide. So I've taken up 45 minutes of your day so far. With that, I'm really excited to be able to publish this in very, very short time. As I said, it's sitting with the senior RALs management for final review. Jared has informed me that we're going to go live with a notification to the members via an e-news, and there will be a portal or a web link that will take everyone through that. And then again, anyone that's got any questions at any time, my phone, my email, I'm here to help and provide clear and concise information that has a reference, and we can get rid of any of the old old mate told me this, or, I thought I could do that, and continue with our, we're here to train and educate more than come in with the big, hammer and smack people with the regulations. So I'm sitting here now seeing if any more questions are going to pop up, or maybe everyone's just keen to see the end of me and get out there and go and enjoy the rest of their Sunday and I can't thank everyone enough that's joined today to listen to me about the MARIP modification and rare approval process for Rotax on condition, and the new subsection to that, which is going to be the ECMP, the engine condition monitoring program.
Thanks, Daz. That was a fantastic session. And I also want to call out the huge amount of work and effort that Daz has put in terms of really driving the merit process for members, which wasn't previously available, and the work that the tech team have been doing on this material. We don't have to do these things, but the tech team have identified that there is a need for it, and that it is a service that potentially supports our members to continue operating these engines. So a huge amount of time and effort has gone into this stuff, and Darren's been a massive driver behind it all, and it's really providing a really valuable service for members. So well done, Daz.
All right, well, I've got a couple of questions. Thanks, Cody. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Thanks for your comments, Lloyd. Pleasure as always. Ross, yes, GA is permitted to instruct with condition. It was permitted in RAOs, so what happened? Well, again, we go back to the rules and the regulations were interpreted by people in their own way. The rules really haven't changed. So, for what Ross has put here, we haven't been able to find any reference in any of the old processes that actually did permit it. It was just, I suppose, an implied belief that people were allowed to do it. But again, RAOS is here to support its members, so we're putting the processes in place now to address, I suppose, the failings or the lack of understanding from many, many years ago. And as I said, with the collection of the data and the validation of the evidence that we will get over time, we'll be able to go back to industry and back to the regulator, and maybe one day they will allow for us to look at maybe flight training with some on-condition components of on-condition requirements. Thanks, Kev, for your support again, as always. Pete's got here, is the ECMP only available for 12 months or longer? Okay, Pete, at the moment, because this is a new rollout, and as I said, we've got two very, very separate components under the Rotax Marit. We have, if the aircraft is within the 20% of TBO, either calendar or hours, you then get 2 years or 200 hours. And then at the end of that 2 years, you can then get another Marit for another 2 years and another 200 hours. So that's effectively 4 years and 400 hours. For engines that are outside that, and again, at the moment, this is to capture our members that have either been ill-informed or have misunderstood, or something's gone astray. For those engines that are plus 20%, for us to be able to allow them to operate, that's the reason why we had to go back with an addendum to the MARIP to capture those engines. So at the moment, the ECMP is only available for 12 months because we're using that as a data collection, and because those aircraft can then only be used for private operations, it gathers the data over that period of time, and they won't ever be eligible to go, those aircraft won't be eligible to ever be used in flight training if they're on the ECMP program, not the Marit component. So, and then for that engine to ever become eligible, well, then it'll have to go back to floods and be overhauled and then meet the requirements and then be reset back to normal. So hopefully that clears that up for you, Pete. But then again, happy to take this offline and get further into it if need be. And let me just see, what else have I got? Anyone else here? Grace, yep. No. It looks like I think I've covered off on it all. So hang on. We got another one in from Bill. How about changing the RAOS version of the maintenance release form compatible with the CASA maintenance? Well, actually, Bill, we do. We have the HAM, and the HAM is RAOS's equivalency of the CASA maintenance release. It's available through your portal, through your member portal. Just bear with me. For those that have done our maintenance first course, our L1 course, they will be familiar with our little, quick reference guide book. But Bill, there in, I don't know if you can see that, but we have actually produced an equivalent type document. It does allow the portal to self-propagate that information for you. It does have, another area on the back that you can put your information into. Very, very similar. You can print it off, unlike the horrible CASA paper, for us engineers. You can, write on that with a piece of paper. Some members have turned around and said, what happens if I fill it in? Simple, print another one off. We produce the L1 booklet, in an A5 size, so it's a lot smaller. So people can print it off as A5 or print it off as A4, fill it in, and I can't get that access while I'm on the line, but that looks like you're on the right link there, Bill. But again, mate, anytime you need to have a chat or you want a hand with it, just let me know and we'll go from there. Another one back in from Ross. The changes that are occurring can cause issues and financial problems. Also, it has caused me serious problems. Not a problem, mate. I will have a chat with you about this, and we will we'll come to some sort of issue about that. Nicholas, g'day. The L1 course is planned. Well, mate, I've been itching to get out. There's a little sneak peek or something that might be coming for our L1 contenders and those that have been there. But the next one I'm trying to do, I'm aiming to try and get my bum up to Tamworth. And look at trying to do that course. But as soon as, we get some, as I said to everyone, I'm based here in Victoria. So we've just come out of 77 days of, lockdown. And now that the rest of the states are starting to open up and, regardless of whatever, we won't get into that. I will be out there and I will be delivering these courses with our L1 trainers as soon as we physically can. So considering we're into, tomorrow, 1st of November, I doubt that I'm going to get the opportunity this year, but we will definitely release a schedule next year. And hopefully, if the premiers and the states and COVID, settles down, or we learn to live with that new normality. I'll be first stop next year will most likely be Tamworth with Chad Summers held out there with the assistance of TAFE New South Wales. Then down to see our brothers in Tasmania, then South Australia, and then a few locations in Queensland and Western Australia. So there's quite a number on there. We do have CASA's sign-off. CASA have come back to us and have validated and approved the L1. They're very happy with the content and what we deliver on that. I can honestly say in the courses that we have run, the feedback we've had has been immense. The participation has been great because we offer a theoretical component, but there's also a competency-based practical component. So while we get a lot of people that, I know how to do that, you give them a set of lock wire pliers or you give them an oil filter cut open, and it's highly amusing exercise. But people come away with it with some real actual skills. We actually do work on an aircraft, get to pull things apart. So it's a really, 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 really good course. And we're hoping to expand that now that we can start to get back. So thank you. I'll get out of everyone's ear now. We have 5 minutes to spare. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. Ross will make contact and we'll have a chat. Anyone else, as I said, my details are readily available. Myself and Jared and Leanne, thank everyone for their time this morning. It's been fantastic turnout. And we'll continue to try and provide practical solutions to address some of the hysterical issues that we face around maintenance. Please don't ever hesitate in coming to us and asking. That's what makes RAAus such an incredible organisation. It's the members that make it. Here we go. No one pop up. Phil, g'day, Phil. Hi, Daz. Can you use the manufacturer's approval to make changes to an aircraft under a MARIP? Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. MARIP has been a really big saviour for a lot of our members. We have done massive amounts of work. We have, I don't know if people remember in the last Sport Pilot that we took a drifter that had a 582 in it. We put a 912 on it. We put a 4-blade Bolly propeller on it. We increased the maximum takeoff weight. One of the other members put 100 horsepower 2-stroke in the back of his aircraft. We have put Dynans in them. We are looking at a couple of the earlier models at increases in MTOW. A lot of them were limited at about 520 or 540 kilos, and we're looking to try and get them up to the 600 kilo range. We've put different propellers on aircraft. We've put Behringer brakes on some of the aircraft. So MARAP is a process that gives the members the ability to, take the early heritage and legacy aircraft, that have been the foundation of what RAAUS is. A lot of them are sitting in the back of hangars because people go, oh, well, I can't do anything with it. I'm reduced to MTO, or, I can't get, an engine. We've taken a lot of two-strokes, the 582s, out of aircraft, and we've actually modified them to put 912s. We've had members that have put, Jabiru engines into some of the type certified airplanes that they didn't originally have. So MARAP is, quite a very powerful tool. It gives RAAUS the ability to modify a type certified airplane, still with an engineering order type approach, like a general aviation approach, but the organisation, and this is again what makes your organisation working for you, is that the organisation itself carries the ongoing liability. So in aviation, as we all know, everyone wants to pass the buck on who's going to carry the torch for the liability. We all know that RAAUS provides member insurance. Our insurers have looked at the MARAP process, and because it is a solidly structured engineering review, it is done to an appropriate process. Unlike CASA, it's managed by myself, Jared, and Leanne, and that's what makes this unique to our organisation. As far as we know, there's no other organisation process in the world that allows a self-regulatory, Part 149 organisation like RAAUS do that, to do it. Okay, Kev's got here, do you need a MARAP approval if it has the manufacturer's approval? Again, Kev, in years gone by, there was a lot of discussion around whether we could or we couldn't. If you get a letter of authority from an NAA or contracting state for that particular make, model and type that's registered with RAAUS, you can accept it. There are some of the manufacturer's approvals that we've got that members have tried to sort of slide through, and you can tell what it's going to do. It's, we have in the tech manual a major mod and a minor mod. What is a major mod? Well, a major mod's anything that's not a minor mod, but the basically boils down to if it's if it affects the weight and balance of the aircraft, or a primary flight control, or a flight characteristic. So, we'll work with the manufacturers, and we'll work with the members, and each, like each of our members, every one of you is unique and special and different in your own magical, wonderful way. And that's the approach that we take in the technical areas, to work with each member to give them the most appropriate, safe, reliable, and validated outcome that we can moving forward, while we're in the positions that we're in. So I think that's about it. I think Cody's going to.
Thanks, Des.
But yeah, thank you everyone for that. It's been fantastic, and I really do appreciate everyone's time this morning to come on board. Oh, hang on, got one from Ross. Can we get some coverage on the Rotax 582 at some stage? Okay, Ross. That's a topic and a discussion for another day. As I said earlier, unfortunately at the moment, the Rotax MARAP ECMP doesn't cover that. There has been quite a bit of a shock to our two-stroke operators out there with the news that Rotax is not going to support that. We are looking at there is a manufacturer at the moment that primarily sells their aircraft with a 582. We are looking at them at the moment to do a MARAP for a directly replaceable two-stroke engine. So I'll issue an R&D C of A for that manufacturer. We'll do some testing, and then that two-stroke engine that they're talking about bringing in will then be covered by a MARAP. So there will be a direct replacement for our membership out there. And in our discussions with Rotax, they have indicated that they will have stock and supplies for many, many years to come at the moment. It will get hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. We know that our operators with 503s and 532s are doing that. A lot of our members don't realise that a two-stroke, the 5 Series has a 300-hour component as well as 3. There's a lot of information out there around it, but we are putting processes in place to address that. So, Ross, you want to take it offline? I can give you the details of that engine and what we're doing. Please sing out if there's anything else I can help anyone with around the two-stroke area.
Wonderful, thanks, Des. We might wrap that up there. filled in the hour perfectly. So thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. And we had a good engaging session there with a good number of members watching. So thanks again to the tech team for the massive amount of efforts that are going into this stuff.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate your time. As I said, pick up the phone, send us an email, whatever you need a hand with. That's what we're here to do at RAOS Tech, myself, Jared, and our wonderful Leanne. So by all means, please get in contact with any of us, and we'll do our utmost to work with you to try and deliver a practicable outcome that best suits your needs.
Thanks, Daz. Go and enjoy the day. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Alrighty, so thanks for tuning in this morning. A great session there by Darren. A couple of things to note there, that these approvals, you must have that approval issued by the technical team before you go and use it. So please don't think it's a free-for-all, but please contact the tech team if you've got any questions in relation to those approvals. There will be more information, as Darren mentioned, being released shortly as to how members can then apply to have that applied to their aircraft. So before we wrap things up, I'd just like to once again thank our National Safety Month sponsors. Without their assistance, we wouldn't be able to run these sessions, and we wouldn't have more than $10,000 worth of giveaways that we've got throughout the month. And thanks to Flight Safety Solutions, who's a gold sponsor of National Safety Month and of today's seminar series. You can tune in very shortly in around about 10 minutes, where Flight Safety Solutions will be presenting on aircraft maintenance data. So another good seminar there to check in with Paul Strike. Thanks again for tuning in, and enjoy your day.